Hello my friends and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing my character build for a melee-based, plate armor-wearing Warlock fighter multiclass in Baldur's Gate 3 that combines the best part of a tanky melee character and a charismatic, powerful spellcaster into one extremely versatile build that works pretty good in basically every situation. I've played this build up to almost max level, and while it delays the early game power spike by one level because you want to multiclass into fighter very early, the mid game and end game for this build is quite powerful and you have a lot of tools at your disposal. The idea is that by combining 3 levels of fighter with 9 levels of warlock, you end up with an extremely versatile character that feels pretty much at home slugging it out on the front line and sitting back and nailing enemies with spells and eldritch blasts. You end up being able to do heavy damage at any range, while also being quite durable with a good health pool, high armor class, and damage reduction from magical plate armor. The levels in Warlock also give you access to some insane utility spells that become incredibly useful both in and out of combat. And the best part? This entire build is powered by the Charisma stat. Both your magic spells and your melee weapon attacks will be scaling off Charisma by level 4, which also means that you can very easily cruise through every single speech check in the game with a +4 or +5 minimum bonus to every single skill check. With that introduction to the build out of the way, let's get started by taking a look at the level up path for this build and talk about your starting ability scores and how this character progresses over the course of the game. I am going to try and set this up to avoid any major spoilers for the game while showing this build, but there will be some slight spoilers for hidden character upgrades as we go. Okay, right out of the gate, we're going to start the game as a level 1 fighter for a very specific reason. By starting as a fighter, we gain heavy armor proficiency. And access to all weapons right at the start of the game. And very importantly for this build, we get to pick a fighting style at level 1. And for this one, we're going to go for great weapon fighting, which will provide very consistent damage on melee attacks because you can re-roll any low damage numbers. For your equipment, you're ideally going to seek out heavy armor and a polearm, specifically a halberd or glaive, as soon as possible. Polearms have extra reach compared to other weapons, and they do great damage, while also giving you the rush attack ability so you can hit things when you're just out of reach. For your starting ability scores, I recommend 10 strength just to avoid any penalties during your low levels, 14 dexterity to help you hit enemies and dodge attacks, and then use your +1 bonus to get 16 constitution so you have a pretty good health pool early on. Intelligence and wisdom will be the dump stats for this build, basically not necessary for any of the character features, so they'll stay down at 8. Finally, your major stat is going to be charisma, which you'll set at 17 right out of the gate with the +2 bonus. For your first level or two, you won't really feel that charisma bonus in combat, but it will be very helpful outside of combat to pass speech checks and gain some extra XP and inspiration points. Now at level 2, we're going to make the switch right into the Warlock class, which is done by hitting the Add Class button in the top right of the level up screen. If you are playing on the easiest difficulty, you will need to add a mod to Multiclass, but for everyone else, just click onto that Warlock class and get started. For our subclass, we'll be going with the Fiend, which grants you temporary hit points every time you take out an enemy, which basically acts as a shield on top of your regular health. Warlocks don't have very many spell slots compared to wizards or sorcerers, but their spell slots recharge after every short rest, not a long rest. And when your spell slots level up, all of your spells become more powerful. So you want to swap out your low level spells for more powerful ones pretty much every time you level up. For cantrips, you absolutely have to take Eldritch Blast, which is the Warlock's unique ranged attack spell. And then for your second one, I would suggest just using Mage Hand because it's useful for a lot of things out of combat. For level 1 spells, I would say Hex is a really good option to add some extra damage to your melee attacks, and then Expeditious Retreat, which you can use anytime you need a little extra movement. For levels 3, 4, 5, and 6, we'll be staying on Warlock. So here at level 3, we'll start off by learning a new spell. And I would say overall, Witch Bolt is the best one to take here. Next, you get to pick 2 Eldritch Invocations, which are unique upgrades for the Warlock class. Right here, you want to pick Agonizing Blast, which adds your +3 charisma bonus to damage on every Eldritch Blast attack. For your second invocation, take Fiendish Vigor, which gives you the False Life spell that adds 7 temporary HP, and it can be cast infinitely since it doesn't take a spell slot. At level 4, we're going to take our 3rd level in Warlock, which gets us an upgraded spell selection and access to a pact with our Warlock patron. You want to take Pact of the Blade for this build, which allows you to either summon a magical weapon or enchant your own weapon with Pact magic, which lasts until your next long rest so you don't have to cast it every fight. What this means is that your melee weapon now uses your charisma modifier for every roll instead of your strength or dexterity. From this point on, all damage that you deal with melee weapons and Eldritch Blast will be increased by your charisma modifier. So now we're on a mission to get that charisma stat as high as possible. For your first level 2 spell, you're going to take Misty Step, which is a bonus action that allows you to teleport to any space that you can see both in or out of combat. This spell is insanely useful. You can use it to jump on enemies, you can use it to escape from enemies, you can use it to go past locked gates and get hidden treasure. It's just insane, and I think you want it as soon as possible. It's probably going to be the spell you cast more than anything else. Now at this level, I would also kind of recommend that you start replacing your level 1 spells you picked earlier with level 2 spells. I would swap out Witch Bolt for either Blindness or Hold Person, both of which are quite useful as crowd control. At level 5, you gain 1 more cantrip and 1 more level 2 spell. I would recommend either Ray of Enfeeblement or Darkness, again just as crowd control skills for emergencies. The important thing for this level is to take an ability improvement instead of a feat, and you're going to want to put both of these ability points into Charisma, raising it to 19 total and increasing your Charisma bonus to +4. So this is the one spot in this video where I'm gonna drop some minor Act 1 spoilers. By the time you hit level 5, you should be able to head into the swampy area in Act 1, and if you explore enough, you will find Auntie Ethel in her treehouse. If you progress her quest to the end and get into the boss fight, you'll be presented with a choice to finish her or spare her life, and you'll get a permanent +1 charisma bonus. For this build, you absolutely want to do this quest and get that +1 charisma, because then you'll be sitting at 20 charisma before you even leave Act 1. This gives you a +5 bonus on every single hit from your melee weapon and your Eldritch Blast, and on every single speech check for the rest of the game. At level 6, you hit Warlock level 5, which gets you the upgrade to Pact of the Blade, allowing you to attack 2 times with your Pact weapon. You also gain access to level 3 spells here, which means you can start doing things like throwing fireballs and casting Fly on yourself. This level is your first real power spike, and you'll immediately feel it in combat. You double your damage and get insane spells. It's really a huge upgrade. For your first level 3 spell, I would take Fireball just because it's awesome and it's really useful, but there's a lot of other good options too. Just remember, you can also swap out a spell to get a second level 3 spell. I would recommend swapping something out to get Counterspell personally, which gives you a chance to nullify any spell cast within your range as a reaction on your turn. Finally, you get another invocation as well, so take either Beguiling Influence for a boost to speech checks, or Devil's Sight for some free dark vision on your character. Now at level 7, we're actually going to swap back to the Fighter class for about 2 levels. At Fighter level 2, you're going to get Action Surge, which basically lets you take an extra turn once per short rest. Because you have so many tools in your toolkit with this build by now, an Action Surge can be used in a lot of awesome ways. You can get an extra spell cast, you can attack 2 extra times, or you can use Misty Step or just regular movement to cover a lot of extra distance. It's a huge bonus, and this is kind of your second mid-game power spike. At level 8, we go for a 3rd level in Fighter, which allows us to take a specialization. For this build, I go with Battle Master, which gives access to combat maneuvers, special abilities that let you do more stuff in melee combat. For my combat maneuvers, I really like Trip Attack for a chance to knock things prone, Riposte so you can swing back at anyone who misses you in melee, and Rally, which allows you to pop a free little heal on yourself or any ally in combat. At level 9, you kind of have a big choice to make. Because the max level in Baldur's Gate is 12, you basically have to decide between gaining an extra feat or ability increase by putting a 4th level into Fighter, or you commit to the Warlock path for the rest of your levels and eventually gain access to level 5 spells, which are quite powerful. Personally, I decided to skip the extra feat and commit to Warlock, so by level 12 I can have 5th level spell slots. Warlock also gets Dark One's luck at level 6, which adds 1d10 to ability rolls once per day, so you can almost always succeed on those really important skill checks without having to save scum. I'm not going to go in depth on every level past here, because frankly, by level 9, all of the important parts are already in your build, and from here on out, you're just getting more powerful. A few pointers for levels 9 to 12 though would be to remember to swap out low level spells for the higher level spells every single time you level up. And when you get your next feat choice, consider going into Polearm Master if you took my advice and used halberds on this build. This feat gets you an extra bonus action attack, and it lets you opportunity attack creatures at twice the distance away that you normally would be able to. And that, my friends, is more or less everything. I'm not going to sit here and list off all of the magic items that you want or tell you where to get the best armor, because that would kind of ruin the surprise of figuring it out for yourself. Overall, I felt that once I hit level 6 or 7, this build kind of started to go insane. The combination of strong spellcasting with good HP and really high melee damage and heavy armor makes this build extremely versatile in combat. And the 20 charisma just made it kind of too easy to succeed on every single speech check in the game. By the time I hit level 9, I was getting a minimum plus 11 to every single persuasion and deception check, which is kind of crazy. I hope you enjoyed the video, or at the very least found it helpful. This build single-handedly made me fall in love with the Warlock, and I actually plan on playing this same build more or less in my next real-life D&D tabletop session. Let me know how this one worked out for you. I hope you find it as fun and powerful as I did. And until next time, stay safe out there, everyone.